You're listening to the Real Estate Entrepreneur Podcast with Terrence Murphy, where we cover sales, investing, and entrepreneurship with an emphasis on real estate. Each podcast, Terrence and his guests will bring you informative and inspiring information within the real estate industry.
So, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Entrepreneur with Terrence Murphy. This season 3, we're going to be focusing on multifamily acquisition, multifamily syndication, multifamily financing, multifamily capital raising, the whole nine. So we're just going to dive deep into multifamily. I think, that's why I wanted to name this show Real Estate Entrepreneur, because it's about sales, investing, and entrepreneurship. So we're going to really start focusing more on the entrepreneurship piece and diving deep. So today I have a guest that we've connected, talking syndication, talking multifamily. He's acquired a good amount of assets in my hometown. I'm really proud of what he's built. Welcome to the show today, Mike. How you doing, man?
Good. Hey, thanks, Terrence. It's an honor to be here alongside of you, man. Thanks for having me.
If you could give us a 1 to 2 minute, just kind of synopsis of your story, how you got into real estate, and then we're going to dive in, man.
All right. I'm a multifamily guy. Myself and my team and my partner, we've been buying garden style B-class multifamily for I guess around 14 years or so now, and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And we've acquired, I guess we have around 35 properties at the moment, a little over 7,000 units, really spread geographically across the smile of the country, from Virginia through the Carolinas, Florida, Dallas, as you mentioned, we love Tyler, Texas, up into the Midwest, Kansas City in particular, Phoenix, California, and up into Seattle. Traditionally buying anywhere from 100 to 300 units and really looking for a great value add play. Either it's mismanaged from an operational standpoint, or it has some physical challenges, or the rents are under market, the interiors aren't up to speed with where the market competitors are. And, we've been able to amass a portfolio that's now worth a little over $1.3 billion at the moment. But got here just being a real estate guy, man. I was a civil engineer. I always wanted to be a developer, Terrence. And I just always had this niche for looking at land. I dragged my poor father all over the place saying, what could we do here? What could we do there? And it wasn't his thing, so I had to go learn it. Did a lot of entitlement work. Securing approvals for the likes of, Walmart, Walgreens, a lot of oil company, ExxonMobil, McDonald's, you name it, across the country. Worked for Toll Brothers, a big national home builder out of Philadelphia. I probably built over 2,000, semi-custom luxury homes for them. Worked commercially in New York City for British Petroleum, doing their real estate development there, including some projects globally. And they bought Arco, in the West Coast, 2001. So I went from New York City to Los Angeles and helped them develop gas stations from Seattle down to San Diego. And really just had an entrepreneurial itch. And what was all along was trying to figure out, how do I do it on my own? I knew how to get it done. I didn't always know how to make money doing it. So I went back, got my MBA at University of Southern California. And then I jumped, partnered up with some investment bankers out of Los Angeles and New York, did a few development projects. 2008 hit. It was ugly, early and often. Got hammered personally.
Yeah, we all did.
And had done a little bit of everything real estate wise, right? Including owning a bunch of single family homes and flipping homes here and owning some small apartments and development over there. So I was blessed with having lost almost all my money, Terrence, but I was blessed with having done a little bit of everything. And I had the opportunity to really, as Warren Buffett says, buy when there's blood in the streets. There was a lot of blood, and coming out of 2008 in 2009, and started buying apartments, specifically in Texas, because that's where the top job growth markets were at that time. And that's really my niche, investing in really well-located assets, well-located apartment areas that have great access to jobs, employment centers, good mass transit when we can get it. and good retail. And we've been buying multifamily ever since.
Man, that's awesome, bro. I got a lot of questions I'm going to dive into. And I think the audience, so first off, congratulations. I always tell people, because we have a course that me and Amber and Sarah and Kyle put together, and it's called the $1 Billion Agent. And then we got one called the $1 Billion Investor, and there'll be one called the $1 Billion Entrepreneur. Anytime you've done $1 billion in anything, so if you're worth $1 billion, you sold $1 billion, you've built a portfolio of $1 billion, that's impressive. So congrats on going over the threshold of the B, man, in your multifamily portfolio. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
So when we think about, you said classes earlier, and we talk about style, I have listeners across the gamut, right? People that have $1 billion in a portfolio, and then I have listeners that are buying their first investment property and trying to transition into multifamily. When you talk about style, when you think about style, what does that mean to you? So is it garden? Is it this? Is it suburban core? What are the kind of the top 3 to 5 styles that you try to track? And what does that even mean if I'm looking at a multifamily asset?
That's a good question. So what we buy is garden style, which means 2-story walk-up apartments. And they're traditionally in more suburban areas, right? Urban areas, you don't find as many of them. You find more mid-rise, high-rise, lots of stairs, right? You got to take an elevator up. But garden style, and most of that was built, 70s, 80s, 90s. But as you go out into the outskirts, that's traditionally what you see. Garden style, either 2-story or 3-story walk-up multifamily.
That's good.
Did I answer that right for you, Terrence?
No, that's perfect. Now, what are some other styles? If people were saying, okay, what are the top 3 to 5 styles I need to be researching or tracking? What are some other styles of multifamily? And then we'll dive into some other stuff.
Yeah, I really think multifamily traditionally is broken up into a couple different classes, right? It can be market rate apartments, which is the traditional apartment. They're asking $900, and if you want to sign a 1-year lease, you're paying $900 a month. There's also senior housing, which can be broken up into subacute housing, memory housing, traditional assisted living housing. There's also age restricted housing. I own one of those. You have to be age 55 or up to live there. There's student housing, not dissimilar to where you are in A&M, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's affordable housing as well. That's not just Section 8. You have to qualify to be a certain percentage of the median average income in any certain area. I feel like there's one I'm missing, but those are the, typically your different classes of multifamily. And then within that, there's A, B, and C. A is more your new construction. I'd say housing or property built within the last 10 years or so. B class housing is kind of in the middle. That can range from the 2000s down into the 80s. Traditional C class housing, a little bit older, right? It usually has some deferred maintenance on it, might have some hair on it, can be built in the 70s down in the 60s. So those are really the traditional, classes or styles when I think of the multifamily industry as a whole.
No, you hit it on the head. And the one class you were thinking about, that last one, is the luxury apartments, where it's like, they have crazy amenities and they have, clubhouses and workout rooms and all that stuff. I've kind of seen it like either luxury or more of like the business professional apartments. And I've seen those. And so, no, that's good, man. That's the perfect answer, actually. So that's what I was trying to get you to. And I think because I think a lot of times people don't realize, I hear people say, I want to be a realtor and I want to sell, and then I want to buy houses and I want to do duplexes and I want to buy ranches and I want to do apartments and commercial. And I've actually done all that. I've sold $1 billion in real estate. I've acquired a lot of real estate. I've developed a lot of real estate. I own commercial strip centers. I own apartments. I own whole neighborhoods of houses, but it took time. Right. And so I wanted people to understand just in the multifamily niche, the complexity. Like you said, with senior housing, you got restricted. There's just so much that can be done in this space. And so that's why I wanted to give some people some some context to garden style. So when you're looking at sizes, that's another question I get all the time. And I know what your answer is, but I want to ask like I don't know, because that's the whole purpose of me being here. When you're looking at the size of an apartment, how do you decide what size makes sense for you, what class, and what town, if you were going to evaluate an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, size. To answer it first, you want it depends on the deal, right? But you want the best return you can get on your money, and that might be on a duplex, two units. It might be on a property that has 1,000 units, right? I mean, that's why we're in the business, to make money, to create long-term wealth, and there's no better way of doing that than real estate. And if you're working with your investors, and most of us in my industry, probably yours too, you're looking to provide smart, safe returns to your investors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always number one, right? Make investors money without losing their money, protect their dollars first. You have a fiduciary responsibility, and provide a very attractive return. Number two, I typically like a little bit larger deals because you get better economy of scale, and you get better management. I don't self-manage. I use third-party management companies. So I love to go into a market where there's a management company that might manage 4,000 units. They know the ABC markets. They know the right locations. They know the best school districts. They're going to know it better than me. And I typically get that when I'm buying properties that are anywhere from 50 to 400 units in size.
Mm-hmm.
And even better, call it 150 units and up. You just get better economies of scale. You get better management companies. I always find that when you get into 100 units and less, you can get more, potentially might find more of a mom and pop management company. And you don't know if they're on your property once a day, once a week, once a year. Larger properties, you got full-time staff, typically of anywhere from 3 to 10 people on a property. Some of them even live there. It's their full-time job protecting the property, the asset, and your money. And that's why I love those types of assets. And then, as for markets, as I mentioned before, I love job growth markets. When I started buying, coming out of the Great Recession, 2009, 4 to 5 top job growth markets were in Texas, Austin, San Antonio, DFW, and Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really been my niche coming out of it. I've seen a lot of people lose money, make some very poor investment decisions, thinking they can get a great cap rate or great cash flow, investing in an area with no growth, or investing in the worst area of town. And that can be dangerous. So investing in smart, well-located job growth markets is really important.
That's great, bro. It's good wisdom. So let's dive a little deeper. So first I want to give this answer for the people out there who are considering getting into multifamily. No matter their experience, I would say the ones inexperienced, what would you say if you could go back and give yourself wisdom many years ago, like you said earlier? What would be the top 5 things that you would do differently, or would you would do to set yourself up to invest in multifamily? What would be those top 5 things if we gave them like a checklist or a to-do list?
Yeah, I was looking at some of your questions earlier. I think the number one thing is really also number 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's really learn how to find what's a good deal, right? And that's not easy for a lot of people, right? You get into the business, everyone's trying to sell you a property. You might start looking for apartments. You meet someone, next thing you know, you're looking at self-storage. Next thing you're looking at a shopping center. Who knows, right? And every broker has the best deal since sliced bread. So it's very easy to get distracted and spread too thin. My recommendation is always stick with what you really want to focus on, develop a niche and become an expert at it, and really put your blinders on it, because it's very easy to get distracted by the next shiny object. And that's, if you're on the sales side of the business, that's what you want to do, right? You want to sell everybody and every deal is the best thing around. But getting back to your first question, it's really developing a skill set of finding a good deal. And that really takes time, right? When I meet someone, they just get in the business and they've got 5 great deals that I should partner on with them or invest with. My red flag goes up right off the bat because it's just not that easy, right? You always say you got to look at 100 deals. Maybe you do due diligence, light due diligence on 50. Maybe you analyze and underwrite 30. Maybe you write offers on 15. Maybe you go best and final on 5 deals to get one really attractive deal for you and your investors. So, we're in the volume business, right? We're in the needle in the haystack business. So you got to look at a lot of deals. And I think that's the best advice I can give people, whether you're looking at apartments or any type of real estate, to convince people that you've got a really good deal. You need to, teach yourself that you got to look at a lot of deals. It takes a while for you to really understand what a good deal is, what it looks like, what it smells like.
Yeah, that's good. So what are those indicators, right? So if you could just run through that real quick, IRR, equity multiple, cash on cash return, like we just throw these things out every day in conversation and we keep moving to the next deal. But if I'm a new investor, whether I want to be a GP or an LP, so let's talk about what a GP and LP is first. And then let's talk about what are those indicators that they should be understanding the basic knowledge of when they're thinking about investing in multifamily.
Yeah, GP, you're the partners that put the deal together, whether you found the deal, whether you're helping sign off on the loan as a loan sponsor, you help raise the capital. As I mentioned, you help find the deal, analyze the deal. You're the management team, essentially, the general partners. And on the LP side, the limited partners, typically you're an investor. You don't have control in making decisions, but you're an owner in the entity that owns the property. And traditionally, you're a private investor, whether you're accredited or sophisticated in that deal. As for returns, everybody uses different parameters, right? Some people just are looking for cash on cash returns, which is not dissimilar to getting a yield in the money market right now. Mm-hmm. But traditionally, that's the reason we invest in real estate. You want that cash on cash return. Not all investors are looking for that, right? Some investors are just looking for a great return, like a stock or anything else. But the beauty of real estate is you get great cash on cash returns, great yield along the way, great tax advantages along the way as well. And then the ratio or the parameter that most investors look for at the end of the deal over a hold period, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, which includes your profits at the sale, is typically an IRR, an internal rate of return, or an ROI, which is the overall return on your investment. ROI is usually, if you've got a 19% ROI, your IRR is usually, call it, 14 to 17%. And that's usually what most investors are looking for. It's 5 to 9% cash on cash returns, and ROI or an IRR of, depends on the type of deal, right?
Yep.
It could be anywhere from 10%, could be upwards of 20%.
For sure. So, quick question, and then we'll pivot. What is the difference between IRR and ROI? Because, you hear these acronyms thrown out, and for most new investors or investors getting into this space. So if you could just, in your mind, say, hey, here's the clear difference on how I have it set. This is ROI, this is IRR, and here's how I see it.
Yeah, IRR, I think is a more, Wall Street terminology. It confuses a lot of people. It factors in the time value of money.
Yep.
Your IRR is typically higher if you sell a great deal, you make everyone a lot of money in 2 to 3 years. You can still have a fantastic deal, but you hold longer and you sell it for 10 years. Maybe you get better cash flow. That IRR is lower. So investors just use different parameters.
Yep.
But IRR, I always think of a more sophisticated investors look at IRR, or Wall Street funds are IRR driven. I prefer ROI for real estate. I think it's a lot easier for most investors to understand. And I think it's a great, it's a great ratio, financial indicator to look at real estate deals over the short term and the long term. And ROI is exactly what it sounds like. It's return on your investment over a certain period of time. And then you can annualize it, right? It's all the cash flow plus all your profits at the sale divided by how much you invested in the deal. If you're an LP, if an investor invested, 100,000, you divide it by 100,000, maybe you get a 200% ROI. And if you want to annualize it, you just divide that right by how many years you were in the deal, whatever the whole period was of the investment.
Perfect answer. I couldn't have said it any better. And I think what that does is because people really get confused between those two. Am I tracking this or am I tracking that? And when I'm talking to them, I say, you got to find your measuring stick, because you can't try to follow everything you hear out there. Like, find what works for you. Like you said earlier, really understanding how to underwrite the deals and follow them. So let's dive.
I prefer ROI, and I've changed, right? In the beginning, I used to tell people, Terrence, don't look at the ROI. Just look at the cash on cash returns. This is a 7-year hold. Invest for your, 7-8%. And in 7-10 years, if the market gets better, which it traditionally does with real estate, that's the beauty of long-term holds, right? You have the ability to ride through the ups and downs, and then over a long period of time, like anything, traditionally you're going up. So I would say don't focus on the overall return, because 7 years is a long ways down the road, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of people, some people look at both. IRR is a little bit of a different beast, and I think it's a better ratio, better financial indicator for those looking to focus on shorter term returns, like 3 to 5 years.
No, that's good.
But everyone's different. You're absolutely right.
For sure, that's good. So one of the things too, like, people always talk about value add, and you hear the Burr method in the residential space a lot. And when you're thinking about, like, there's obviously a lot of developers right now who, when we were short on housing, man, the permits getting passed just in the state of Texas alone for new apartments was like at an all-time high. Now, obviously there's been a delay and a kind of slowed down. When you're thinking value add versus do I buy a Class A property, how do you squeeze the juice out of those returns? Like how do you see an asset, buy it at a good price, and add value? What are some of those basic things you like to look through in your mind?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a fun answer, because there's so many different ways to squeeze those dollars out. Number one is just buying rights, right? You have to understand the market. You have to understand cap rates. You have to understand price per unit. You have to understand where you want to be, where you don't want to be. What area of the city there is path of progress, where you have the better potential to protect your investment and enhance your investment long term. Path of progress is typically where jobs are coming in, new developments going, better school districts, et cetera. Value add can come from two different ways. As I mentioned before, sometimes value add can just be operating or running the business better, right? Reducing expenses, reducing payroll. Might even mean adding payroll so you can manage better, handle work orders better, create happier tenants, and then create higher retention, meaning tenants are staying longer, they're referring more people, and they're more likely to pay, their annual rent increase. So on the physical side, right, a lot of it, sometimes you can create value just by eliminating deferred maintenance. New roofs, new siding, new color pops throughout, replacing signage, right? Sometimes just, when you drive down the street, when you see updated signage, you assume that's a cool, new, nice property. It's not always the case, but it's a good start, right?
Yep.
Improving landscaping, improving the amenities, updating the leasing center. I love to create a kind of a Starbucks style, social millennium style, leasing center atmosphere, redoing the pool, new pool furniture throughout, adding dog parks, which can be a real social side of the business. In my business, I think just about a third of our tenants have pets. So pets pay rent too, right? That's another revenue generator. New cable contracts, revenue generator. I'll do valet trash, right? Who wants to walk their trash out to the dumpster when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's rainy? Valet trash, another way to drive income. I had technology packages to most all of our properties, which includes keyless entry locks, Bluetooth, like Nest thermostats, right? Bluetooth leak sensors and all the wet areas, the kitchens, the bathrooms. It's probably something else I'm missing there.
No, that's good.
And then on the physical side, also just renovating your apartment, right? Let's say you can get 1,200. Currently an apartment's renting for 1,200, but I think I can get 1,600, right? $400 more if I do, 1, 2, 3, right? Which is replacing the laminate countertops with quartz. Not necessarily ripping out the existing cabinetry, but just doing new shaker style cabinet faces, replacing fixtures and finishes, and adding subway tile, backsplash in the kitchens. Are you going to do new appliances and go black, or are you going to do new appliances and go stainless? There's all kind of ways you can squeeze those dollars, but those are a lot of the ways we do. Washer dryers, right? Who wants to walk downstairs to do their laundry and find your laundry in someone else's basket, right? So I love to buy properties that already have washer dryer hookups in the units. And I love to buy properties where I can add washer dryers to the specific units. So those are some wonderful value plays that we really focus on that I love when I buy properties.
No, I love it, man. You're dropping some gems right now. So when we think about, I want to pivot to today after this last question. So you said earlier you own single family rentals, and there's a lot of investors, including myself, that own a lot of houses, townhomes, duplexes. How did you make that jump to bigger multifamily? And why did you feel like you needed to make that jump? Why didn't you just keep managing houses?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sometimes at some point in time, I thought I should have never left single family homes. I went to a couple seminars. I had a job in the development business, so I was already doing real estate. And it was a good corporate job. And on the side, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I was going to some of these seminars and listening to gurus like you, Terrence, speak on this and that. So I started flipping homes. I flipped my first home in Hermosa Beach, California, Southern California. And I made $100,000 on my first flip, which was a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
And this goes back, 15 years ago. And I often go, I should have never stopped, right? If I had continued that momentum, I could have made so much more money. But I took a different route, and I took that 100,000 and I went and got my MBA at University of Southern California. And I went into what I always wanted to do, which was development. I kind of took a couple rights and lefts after I started in single family homes. While I had a good job and an MBA, I was buying single family homes across the country, doing some fix and flips with some guys in Atlanta. I think at some point I ended up with 15 homes and a couple small apartments. I'll be honest with you, I learned I didn't want to do that anymore because 2008, 2009 hit, and everyone says real estate can only go up, but I went through that. It did not go up for a couple years. It was ugly and painful, and I was negotiating short sales and trying to do loan modifications, on properties, and had vacancy issues, and rents were going down. It was a hard period of time to manage a couple single family homes, and I can tell you, it's a full-time job managing 10 to 20 homes for those of you that do it, if not more.
Yeah.
And that, I'll be honest with you, the pain from that experience wasn't exactly caused by single family homes. It was really caused by that period of time. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And it's what really pushed me into the stability of multifamily, because it, as bad as the great, financial crisis was at that period of time, I always call it a real estate recession, right? If people think everything at that time went back to the bank, if it was real estate, And the reality was that was not apartments. I think the foreclosure rate of apartments was like 0.4%.
Yeah.
Through that period of time, occupancy went up, and it ended up being a phenomenal time to buy multifamily. So I find it just to be safer, less headaches, less issues, better management alternatives, better trained people in their industries to help with legal issues and leasing and repair and maintenance and management than with single family homes having to trust, a small management company. So long answer there, but that's really what pushed me or took me from single family homes into apartments.
No, that's good. And I think the big thing is, because I'm always, that's why I named the show Real Estate Entrepreneur, because I have a lot of realtors that I've trained and that are part of my organization. And I'm always trying to get them to see that you can get past buying a, one house, two house, three house type strategy. I think where they have a hard time with syndication, and this will be one of my last questions, then I want to pivot. They can't wrap their mind around how to make money as a multifamily syndicator. So, I put together an acronym. I do acronyms for everything. I call it the GRAAPP, GRAAPP, and then I break down how you can make money from those ways. But when you look at as a syndicator, just syndications in general, how can you make money as a GP, right? Like, what does that look like for our listeners out there?
Yeah, and one thing before we pivot to that, it doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money in single family homes, right? I know a lot of people that do. And I've done some consulting for some families that just have crushed it with single family homes. There's some individuals, I can think of a million of them, and they wanted to go from single family homes into multifamily, but their single family home business was a huge success, right? They had built the right infrastructure. They had done it a long time. They figured out what to do and what not to do. And they were phenomenal entrepreneurs at it. And then in the end, I ended up telling them, hey, stick with what you know best, right?
Yeah.
You have a really successful business over here. Don't kill the golden goose. And for some people, it's hard to go from single family home to multifamily when you're doing 20 flips a year and you own 20 to 40 homes and you've built that business there, and it can be really successful. So like anything in life, there's pros and cons to both, and the key is becoming an expert and building a niche with it.
Yep.
How do you make money as a syndicator? A couple different ways. I mean, people always ask, how did I get started? It's really, you do one good deal a year by your investors, and it takes a long period of time, right? As I mentioned earlier, finding good deals is really hard. So you find one, first year you do 1 year, next year maybe you do 2 years, next year you maybe do 1 year, next year maybe you do 0 deals, and next year maybe you do 3 years. It takes it's a long period of time of making investors money, and they keep coming back for more typically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on an individual deal, normally, how does a GP make money is with, let's say, with every dollar that comes in from positive cash flow after you pay your expenses and your lender, those dollars are split anywhere, I'd say 80-20.
Yep.
80% go back to the investors, 20% stay with the GP.
Yep.
And that's not always a lot of money, but over time that builds up. We'll charge a typical 1% asset management fee. We certainly make fees when we buy the property. I think traditionally you'll find groups that syndicate, Terrence, to use your term, will charge anywhere from a 2 to sometimes upwards of 5% acquisition fee, which is a percent of the purchase price.
Yep.
I don't say we make money on that because we have a big team. We have a lot of expenses that those dollars go to. I typically take that fee as well and just roll it in as an investment into the deal.
Yeah.
And then you usually get a piece of the back end as well when you sell. And I'll use that same ratio. Every positive dollar made, net dollar made at the sale is usually split 80-20 as a result as well. 80% to the investors. You're always trying to give most of the money back to the investors and keep a small piece or pie to yourself. And then you got to do that over and over and over again.
For sure.
And that's how we make money in our business.
No, I love it. So yeah, I created that acronym. It's GRAAPP. So you have like the loan guarantee fee. So a guarantee fee, like you have a high net worth individual who's willing to sign on the loan, there's a fee there. The refinance fee, if you end up refinancing it and keeping the asset, just obviously going through a refi is a lot of work. Asset management fee, like you talked about earlier. Acquisition fee as the other A. And then the other P is property management. If you decide to in-house manage it or third party manage it. And then the last one is profit split. And that's how I've always explained it to anybody. It's like, how do you make money? And I just created that acronym. I call it the GRAP. And I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but GRAAPP. And it breaks it down.
A lot of those little value add plays can make a lot of money. I just was running the calc. If you could raise rents $100 a month, right? Or let's just do $50 a month. $50 a month, and maybe you've got a 100-unit apartment complex in College Station. You multiply that times 12 months a year and divide that by a 5 cap. You just added $1.2 million to the value of your property.
Wow.
That's the greatest way to create money in our business.
Is raising the rents within reason and really having a value to be able to raise the rents.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Yeah.
About it.
Yeah. And I think people, I talk to people all the time about, NOI and why driving that NOI drives value. Now, like you said, economies of scale, $50 times 100 units, over 12 months, and then taking that total gross revenue and then dividing it and getting that cap rate that spits out that extra value on top. So if you bought it for 10 million, now it's worth 11.1, right? So no, that makes sense. That's really good.
Yeah. And then start charging for pet rent and application fees and valet trash fees, and there's another $100 more in fees. So there's another $1.2 million you added in value as well. So it adds up fast, and they can become really big numbers.
For sure. So I got a couple final questions, and that's where I told you we send out that template of questions. I follow it sometimes I don't, man. And I like to keep it organic and real. When we're thinking about you, individually, just as an investor, an entrepreneur, multifamily, you've grown, your AUM is over $1 billion. What is your moonshot? Like, what's that one goal or dream that other people in your life think is impossible, but it's something that you want to pursue to achieve? What is that moonshot?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was the hardest question for me to answer of the 16 you gave me here. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest with you. I've been knee deep in my business, focusing on, making money for my investors for a long period of time. I've got 3 young girls that are 12 or 13 now, 13, 11, and 8. And, most of my free time is with them and playing sports with them and coaching them. So, that's all. I'm already experiencing my moonshot to some extent. Looking forward, I always wanted to get more involved with my community and philanthropy. So my wife and I have been very focused on building the family trust and reaching out to specific charities and groups in our area where we live, where we can help add value here in Northern California. I applied for the local school board, Terrence. Some people ask me why the heck would I want to do that. I have a school board meeting here in a couple hours. Again, part of my moonshot has always been wanting to work really hard, build a successful business, and then take some time to give back to the others in the community. And then the business moonshot. I always tell people, as I mentioned, don't kill the golden goose, right? So we've built this tremendous multifamily business, and we have a phenomenal team. I got a great partner and great staff that have been with me forever. But if I took my head outside of multifamily, and I think of your background, like how cool would it be to own, a sports team, a sports franchise,
that'd be cool.
or be involved as a partner or the management in one. As an ex-athlete like yourself, I think that would be the moonshot dream for me at some point.
One day we'll put a group together to buy something, man.
That sounds good. I'll take your lead.
Yep, let's do it. So, final two questions. You know, I have all my guests come on and recommend a book and why. Can you recommended a book. Why did you recommend it and what has it done in your life?
Yeah, it's actually it's the top book in black behind me. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Probably given hundreds of people that book. And it's for me, when I had lost almost everything coming out of 2008, it got me up on my feet. You know, I've been blessed. I was always one of these guys that knew when I fell I was going to land on my feet, and that didn't always happen because sometimes I landed on my head. But I knew I was going to always pop up and land back on my feet, right?
Yep.
Think and Grow Rich is just a very motivational a book, primarily about the success traits of Andrew Carnegie. And these are lessons looking back over 100 years. But the funny thing about that book, Terrence, is I've never finished reading it. It's always been one of these things. I read half of it. I get motivated. I highlight all these wonderful motivational sentences, and I get so motivated that I put the book down and I jump right back into action. I think that's where money is made in real estate and entrepreneurship. So that's always my best book, personally, professionally. But like I said, interestingly enough, I don't think I've ever gotten but 75, 80% through it. And it motivates me to go do something else I've always wanted to do. The
good thing is that 75, 80% got you to where you're at today. For our listeners, as we close, where can they find you? And then what's your final thought for our listeners on Real Estate Entrepreneur Podcast?
Yeah, I think you've got my contact information. I always tell everybody this. I'm always available for them. So, call my cell. You can text me in the middle of the night. I'll try to get back to you the next day. But email is mike@l5invest.com, which is my company name. L is in Larry, the numeral 5, invest.com. And you go to the website, L5 Investments, learn a little bit more about what we do. You can see our properties, et cetera, and learn a little bit more about some of our value plays. My cell phone number is 310-991-3091. Gosh, what do I leave you with? I think it's just never give up. I remember in high school, my mom gave me a picture of this frog that was being strangled by a bird that was halfway down his throat. And I always think of that is sometimes when you really, really want to do something, never give up. Surround yourself with better, smarter people. Like Terrence and your team, find a good guru, find a great mentor, but stick to what you've always wanted to do, right? It's never an easy road, but those that really work hard and believe in it almost always find success with it.
Man, that's good, bro. Well, thank you again, Mike, for being on the show. Lots of wisdom packed in this 45, 50 minutes. It went a little longer than I wanted, so I apologize, but thank you for the wisdom. The questions, I wanted to keep them coming. And I know that this show will make an impact and really give people a lot of tools, perspective and thoughts. And hey, you've done it. 1 billion, man. So congrats to that, man. We'll talk soon. Thank you for being on the podcast.
You got it. Thanks, Terrence. Appreciate you having me, and congrats on your success as well.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.